One of the worst things you can hear as a salesperson is, it's just outside of our budget. Coming up next, how to handle that like a pro. Hello, hello, hello. You are listening to your weekly podcast, a brand new training for the members of Get It, for the ones who aren't afraid of success, money, or growth. I'm Jennifer Bleam, and welcome to podcast number 9, the dreaded sales objection. So, I want to talk about price objections because I want to make sure, first of all, that it really is an objection because sometimes it is simply a reflex. It's too expensive. Oh, it's just a little too high. That's more than we were expecting to spend. Oh, we had a budget and you're just a little bit outside of that budget, right? Whatever that theme is. And, you know, we are all guilty of the same thing. Let's say a telemarketer calls you at dinner and you're like, no, I'm not interested. Even if you were just talking about that very thing the previous week, because it's inconvenient. You're being bothered. You don't care about it right this moment. Or you're shopping at a store and a salesperson comes up and says, can I help you? And you're like, no, thank you. Yeah, just looking. We all say it. We all are liars when we are prospects because we are shopping, especially if you're a woman and you're listening to it. We rarely just wander into a store because we're looking. Of course, we're going to buy something. What we're trying to do is say, just go away. I'm not ready to talk to you yet. I'll have some questions later, but I'm not there yet. So sometimes when your prospects are saying it's a little bit too high, it's just a reflex because they know if they say that, you'll give them some time to think it over, or perhaps they're hoping that you'll give them a discount. And so if they say it's too high, you can certainly say, well, how much too high is it? Or, yeah, unfortunately, things today do tend to be more expensive than we always want it to be. I'm just curious, did you have a certain dollar figure in mind? And so make sure that you're able to fairly easily overcome that reflexive answer that a lot of prospects will give you. But my second point is that sometimes it's not an objection that you can diffuse, that you can overcome. It is the legitimate story, and they're being honest with you. Because let's say that you're trying to sell a managed services solution to a poorly funded company in a very low profit margin market, then they really may not have the money. It simply may not exist. They can sign the contract, but there's no way. Maybe they'll have the money for that first month, but they know next month the only way to be able to pay you is to not make payroll or not pay their rent. And so sometimes it's too expensive really does mean it's too expensive. And the worst is when they love your solution and you've done a phenomenal job building your case and they love you and they're, giving you all the right buying signals. But then you get to the end and you're like, yeah, you can't, they genuinely just cannot afford it. So you need to be able to kind of sniff that out as a salesperson as well. Ideally, kind of upfront, right? You're qualifying. Let's make sure they're qualified from a budget standpoint, which means they're qualified to spend time with you. The next thing I want to talk about is mindset, because a lot of times you may be trying to pitch something that you don't believe in your heart of hearts is really worth what you are quoting. So I will be very candid. When I first started my consulting practice, I was barely charging $2,000 for like 8 hours worth of consulting, which I don't know what that is. You can do that math if you care to. And I chatted with a fellow consultant and we were talking about the benefits and the value and whatever. And they said, $2,000? Like, really? You need to like easily charge $5,000 for that. And I went, oh, okay. And I immediately raised my rates to 4,900. And then I started closing at 4,900 fairly regularly. But the difference was in my mind, I did not realize what my offer was worth. So I would tell you, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Because so many of us will say, I can't sell it at this price. I can't sell managed services at $150 a seat, or I can't sell managed security for an additional $150 a seat, or whatever the numbers are. If you say I can't, well, then you can't, because you're not going to make yourself into a liar. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But let me give you a secret. One of the most powerful words in the English language is how. How can I do it? Because what that allows you to say is, okay, I don't know how to do this yet, which, by the way, there's another powerful word, yet, but there's somebody in my market or in a similar market with a similar plan to me, and he or she is doing it. So if he or she is doing it, they've just proven that it's possible. So how are they doing it? Well, what have they figured out that I haven't? And so that mindset is very important and very critical. But if you've actually pitched something and now you're at the point where the prospect says, well, it's just too expensive. If in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, this really is expensive, you aren't going to challenge them. You're not going to dig in. You're not going to take a deep breath and very calmly say, what does that mean? What does that mean in your world? You won't feel comfortable challenging them on that statement, because in your mind, you've been saying, I can't sell it at this dollar figure. No one in my marketplace will ever buy it for this. So don't overlook the mindset piece of this. The next piece I want to talk to you about is the salesperson's job. Because sometimes when they say, wow, that's awfully expensive, what they're saying is, I just talked to someone exactly like you and they're cheaper. One of my mentors said this a couple of days ago: price is the last refuge when prospects think you're the same. Price is the last refuge when prospects think you're the same. So think about this from a buyer's standpoint. If I came to you and I said, I have a Gala apple, shiny, blemish free, it's the correct temperature. I like mine room temperature. Maybe you like yours cold. So it's whatever temperature you want it to be like. And I will sell it to you for 50 cents. And another salesperson comes in and says, I have a Gala apple and it's the correct temperature and it's shiny and it's blemish free, and my Gala apple is $3. Well, on the surface, one Gala apple is the same as the other Gala apple. Are you going to spend $3 or are you going to spend 50 cents? You are going to spend 50 cents because you're a good business owner. And you are looking at two apples that look exactly the same. So remember, price is what the prospects default to when they are looking at two options that look exactly the same. Now, just in case you're a bit contrarian and you're like, I don't like apples, that's my next point. Because value has to be set in the world of your prospect. Because in the mind of the prospect, if they don't like apples, they're not going to spend 50 cents or $3. Maybe they're not hungry right now. Maybe they're doing periodic fasting, where they don't eat until a certain time of day. They're not going to spend 50 cents or $3 on an apple, even if they like apples. So value is set in their world. And why I'm harping on value so much is that instead of them comparing one apple to another apple and going just purely based on price because they look exactly the same, you have to build the value. You have to explain what is in it for them in their world, in the mind of the prospect. So if I'm trying to sell you an apple and you don't like apples, maybe you like grapes or you like bananas or you like M&Ms, you're not going to buy from me because I am not setting this in their world and in your world. So make sure you are proving the value of your solution, but you're proving the value of your solution in the mind of the prospect. That's why you can't sell technology. That's why you can't sell speeds and feeds. That's why you can't sell, oh, let me go through the 17 layers of my security stack, because that isn't valuable to them. What is valuable to your prospect is knowing that they're safe, knowing that their business is not going to be taken down by a rogue actor, knowing that if that does happen, you will be their right-hand man to walk them through what is probably the most stressful month or two of their life. That is valuable. And when you have built the value correctly, then you won't hear, oh, that price is too high, because they'll be comparing your price to the price of doing nothing, the price of staying with the incumbent, or the price of that other company across the street that just said, oh yeah, we can take care of that. It'll be $50 an endpoint. And they'll be like, what are you going to give me? Oh yeah, we're gonna, and they blah, 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 speeds and feeds all over the place. And so that of course they're going to buy from you, because you are offering them not just an apple for 50 cents or $3, but you're offering them an apple orchard. And they're like, why would I want an apple for 50 cents when I could get a whole orchard for $300? So do you see how it's not always about dollars and cents? If you are building the value in the mind of the prospect, not the value of why you think it's fantastic, but the value in the mind of your prospect, then it's not about money anymore. Unless they are just reflexively giving you that answer because prospects want you to go away, or unless they legitimately want your service, but they don't have the money, or unless you don't believe you can. So those are some thoughts I wanted to share with you about price objections, because I've gotten about 3 or 4 questions over the last handful of weeks about selling at certain prices or getting price objections. I also want to add this. I didn't put this in my outline, but I want to encourage you with this. Right now we're in a very challenging time. At the time of this recording, we're at the end of 2020. The United Kingdom is locked down again. Depending where you are in Australia, you've got a complete lockdown. Some of you, lockdowns have just been lifted. Here in the States, it's like this rolling, almost like a rolling blackout, where some states are wide open, other states are starting to lock down. It is a very, very challenging time to be selling. And people don't have the emotionally, they are not going to invest in something that is questionable. So before you even share the price, you need to ask yourself, did I prove that they need this? Not do they want it, not is this a kind of nice thing to have, but do they need this? Because if the more reasons you can give them to need your solution, whether it is a standalone managed services or a managed security upgrade to an existing client, or the whole package with managed services and managed security, the more reasons you can give them for why they need this. Not that this is a luxury item, but that they absolutely have to have this, the less likely you are to get a price objection, and the more likely you are to get a sale, ideally in that same call where you quote the price. So I hope that helps. If you've got additional questions, comment down below or inbox me. I am always happy to help. That is it for today. We will talk next week.